Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good to see you here. Lumberjack Landlord in the flesh. It's a big week this week. Lots doing, lots of moving parts this weekend. Um, got a few units moved into the over the last 10 days or so, and kind of going into the winter doldrums. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today was lending winter, hence beautiful Mount Washington at minus 100, like it gets every winter there. Yes, that's in my state. Yes, it's close. It's probably like an hour away or so. So it's not far away at all. But I wanted to talk to you guys about lending winter because most of you have never seen this. I, however, have because I've been through two corrections, or the Great Recession and a correction. So, what here are the fun things that you can look forward to. One of the things that I wanted to make sure to shout out to is my good buddy, uneducated economist Simon, did a fantastic video on liquidity. I believe it was yesterday or Friday. Absolutely encourage you guys to go watch that. Him talking about liquidity, because that's really kind of sort of what it is and what the issue becomes. But I'll give you guys scenarios because I always like to give you real world examples and actually what the journey is, what my journey has been. So about a month or so ago, I put I put a deal under contract and sent it over to my bank, had them review it. They reviewed everything. They reviewed the basically T's and C's, which are the terms and conditions. They said, yeah, sure, we'll lend on this. I said, awesome. Sounds super awesome. So we did. They said, we'll lend on this. Here's, they basically give like a version of a pre-approval letter. It's not one where the banks basically say, hey, we guarantee we're going to lend on this. They basically say, this client's in good standing and we've done a number of projects like this with the client. And there's, we expect to proceed and to be able to fund this project, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing committal, but more just kind of general, hey, here's what we're going to do. And so that then puts the seller at ease. Hey, he's done this before. He's done it with this bank before. They're used to these kinds of projects with him, and that sort of thing. That's where I talk to you guys a lot about relationships, right? Your network is your net worth. And you can go out there and you can shop the best rate, but that's not usually the best thing for your business. If you're trying to grow a business, if you're trying to do more than just a few rentals, if you want to know that you can go look at something and that you can get an approval and you're not just a number, that's how fast that works for me. Is I can pick up the phone and I can give them a quick call and I can say, hey, here's what it is. And they're like, yeah, sure, I'll send you out a letter tonight. So they do. They send out a letter, and it's not snail mail. It's you get it in email so I can forward it on. But what was interesting was, so we're going through the process. And within 48 hours, so I send that over to the seller. They're like, oh, awesome. Fantastic. I was like, yep, it's all good. Kid you not. I get an email 48 hours later saying we're rescinding. We're not going to do that deal with you. And I was like, what? Well, it got to the senior lender, the one that I always tell you guys about. Not that person specifically. I always tell you about the senior lender is the person in any of these small, medium, large size banks, $1 to $2 billion AUM, assets under management. For Keith Hager, that's the acronym. So AUM, assets under management, $1 to $2 billion, typically 3 to 7 locations. So we're having that conversation and they're basically like, hey, listen, you're going to get the building vacant and we don't want a vacancy. I'm like, guys, so we fight about it. We fight about, what that's exactly going to look like. And they're like, we'll do a deal with you, but you have to buy it and you have to have it filled. I'm like, I'm not taking less money on the rent because it's a commercial building. I'm not going to take less money on the rent because no one's able to see it beforehand. And I'm not able to make any improvements beforehand. I said, I'm not going to do that. They said, we're not doing the deal. I said, fine. You're not the only bank out there. I just give you first shot. Yeah. So anyway, that lending winter has started, right? And so how it starts to happen is the money starts to become more difficult to get. They start having more stipulations. They start having more T's and C's, terms and conditions around getting their money. Then guess what? Then they say, hey, so yeah, we're borrowing this money at 5%. And normally our normal margin is 1.5% or 1.75. So instead of it being 5, it's 6.5 or 6.75. Well, now our rates are 2.75 or 3. So now you're not borrowing at 5%. Now you're borrowing at 7.75 or 8. Basically, what the banks do is they add margin on top. So, hey, I'm borrowing at 5. I'm putting it out the door at 6.5. In a healthy market, that 1.5 is good enough for them. In an unhealthy market, they are basically putting in risk. The higher that margin is between what they're selling or what they're buying their debt for and what they're borrowing it for, what they're lending it for, the higher the spread, the worse the bank is, the worse position the bank is in. What they're trying to do is they're trying to price in higher and better profitability because they have other stuff that might be getting stinky. So it's very interesting in having these conversations and in looking at the numbers. So one of the banks in New Hampshire, in my state, it's the Bank of New Hampshire, actually closed down their residential lending business. They closed it down and they said it wasn't profitable. Now that means a few things. Either A, they're an absolutely horrific operator, possible, but they're also about a $2 billion bank, assets under management. The other thing is, what's really interesting is that they do have a lot of commercial stuff. Now, in 2018, 2019, we were borrowing commercial debt, and that's anything over 4 units. So it's 5-unit stuff, 6-unit stuff, 30-unit stuff. It could be commercial stuff, like a strip mall. It could be like a little retail space. Any of that stuff is commercial. So think business equals commercial, but also think anything over 4 units, that's going to be commercial loans. Those commercial loans aren't like the 30-year fixed rate debt that all of us get so excited about. That 30-year fixed rate debt means my payment's going to stay exactly the same for 30 years. The only variable to that is if I escrow my taxes and escrow my insurance. There's going to be variable there. That's the part of your mortgage payment that goes up. So 30-year fixed rate, that's what we're all after. But when you're talking commercial real estate, you are talking things that are done in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, and 10-year debt. Now, it's amortized, meaning that they basically spread it across 25 years, right? The issue is that it's only fixed for 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. When it's fixed for a shorter amount of time, typically the rate is lower because they're believing that they're going to catch something in that time shift, right? And so the challenge for them is that most guys that borrow on those numbers, Dave Ramsey back in the early 80s, he was borrowing on short-term debt, but his was even shorter. His was 60 and 90-day debt. That debt's not really a thing anymore. It sort of kind of is. It's called bridge debt. So it's kind of a thing, but not anything that we should be messing with. Not anything that I mess with. So what was really interesting about watching this kind of thing unfold was now in 2023, this time in 2023, we are now well into where what was happening 3 years ago. The pandemic was around February, March, and then it got worse and worse and worse. And then everybody started to realize what the opportunity was because of how much money was being flooded into the market. So everybody starts buying and everybody's like, hey, listen, here's our chance to really speed up. And most states had exemptions, smart states, had exemptions for construction and for construction workers. So that industry in many states didn't stop, didn't slow down. Let's fast forward a little bit more. Now we are towards the end of 2023 when a lot of those deals that were done with 3-year debt. Guess what's coming? The reset. The reset's coming. When that debt resets, I was getting 3 and 5 year debt at about 3.5%. Really super cheap. That debt is going to reset in the next anywhere from 0 to 6 months is what that debt's going to reset. When that resets, most of those loan documents have a provision in them that says it's going to reset at X amount. And that's usually it's being pegged to something. It might be pegged to, used to be pegged to LIBOR. It's not really a thing anymore. It would be prime rate +2. It might be FHLB, which is a Federal Home Loan Bank. And so it really does range. And then they have different products and they say, hey, FHLB, and they call something classic. And that's typically 5-year debt. But there's a lot of debt out there that for these commercial guys that are 3-year debt. And when you think commercial, you think only businesses or only more than 5 units. They also need usually that same debt for building a track of 10, 20, 30, 40 homes. So that means even though it's residential projects, it's commercial debt. So what I'm here to tell you is that's why banks have largely, a number of them have slowed lending. Some have shut down, SVB, Bank of New Hampshire, and a few others. But that's the contagion that you'll see in the system. So when I say, yeah, it's not going to hit residential debt, technically I'm right. It's not hitting residential debt because residential debt's still available. It's still 7.5. If you have a 720 or 740 credit score, you're still getting debt. It starts to tighten up at the bottom when people are like, well, yeah, more likely than not, you're not going to pay. And I don't want to pay the extra risk. You know, I don't want to lend out subprime. Margot Robbie, think shit. And so that's kind of the idea. So as we continue to watch this stuff unfold, now banks are saying or shutting down residential stuff. Why? It's not because of the residential market. It's because of the exposure that they have on the commercial side. Many banks that are $1 billion to $2 billion to $3 billion, guess what? They have a residential department and they have a commercial department. Here's the thing. They might have those two departments. One might be thriving and one might be dying, or they might both be doing okay or well or bad. It's still one bank balance sheet. This is where we go into the fractionalized lending, fractionalized banking. Now every bank is after deposits. The reason that they're after deposits is because they need to cover the loans that they're working out with these big banks, with these big projects. There's something called a participation deal. A participation deal is where a lot of smaller banks have lending limits where they say, we won't lend out more than 10 million bucks on a given project. Well, it's a $40 million project. Okay, well, we'll do a participation deal, which means bank A, 10 million, bank B, 10 million, bank C, 10 million, bank D, 5 million, bank E, 5 million. Now you have 5 lenders in on a $40 million bank. Well, now that debt is now resetting from 3.75 to 8 or 8.5 or 9 because the banks can mark that paper up. So now what do you have to do? Now you have to rework that deal out with all 5 of those banks because that's all debt. So the project guy says, yeah, you need to work out my debt. And they're like, well, yeah, rates are 8. And he's like, okay, 8's going to blow up the deal. 8's going to kill the project because I won't be able to do the carry on that. So the bank's options are say no, tough S, and we're not going to do that. Or they try and do some sort of a workout where they basically have to partially fund because they're going to do much lower margin for that customer than they would for somebody else. So that then becomes a low margin deal, which then means they need to increase the capital that they have behind the scenes hanging out there on their balance sheet because they're only allowed to have certain levels of risk. Now, does that mean that residential lending is in trouble? Not really, but yeah, sort of. Not really, because it's not directly attributing to residential debt, but it is attributing to the bank balance sheet. Now the bank balance sheet doesn't look as good. They have to do workouts on these really massive deals. They have lower margin. Then they have less to lend out. And that's where a guy like me gets pinched because now they don't want to do my deal because there's too much risk there in their eyes. So I find it absolutely fascinating that this is where we're at with some of these banks. But this is what I expect you guys will see and continue to watch unfold is that you will see banks that have both sides of the business that will have trouble lending on the residential side because they're having to spend their time, money, energy, effort, reserves, balance sheet to be able to repair or do a workout on a much larger transaction that they can't have default. And this is where the idea of these participation loans, this is where those are scary, is because it's the same thing that happened with mortgage-backed securities. Same thing that happened. What did they do? They said, hey, instead of giving this one house to one bank as a mortgage-backed security, we're going to take a tenth of it. And we're going to give a tenth of it over here and a tenth of it over here and a tenth of it over here. And that's what made 08 so messy, was that you had pieces of debt associated with a given asset spread in a bunch of different places to spread risk. What it did was it didn't spread risk, it spread contagion. That's largely what can end up happening. So I know I just hit you with an absolute bucket of information, but the long story short is I do expect banks to continue to tighten. I do expect the fact that they've gotten some of these very big commercial loans that are needing to be worked out because they can't walk away from a deal like that and they can't foreclose on a deal like that and they don't want to foreclose on a deal like that. They still want that to perform, recognizing they're going to allow it to perform at lower margin because they're going to do a workout. That's where then it gets saddled on to guys like us, whether you've got 4 units or 40 units or probably not 400, but 4 or 40 or 100. This is this type of stuff that's going to impact us. So what you'll find is when 10 people used to be the ones lending out on residential debt, and now 7 people are lending out on residential debt, what happens? It's more scarce. Pricing goes up. They have more pricing power. They get more margin. And believe it or not, that is where you then see, even if the 10-year is trading around 5, here's the problem. Yeah, you're still going to see 8% rates because they're needing to increase the margin to increase their balance sheet so they can do workouts on these larger commercial deals that are doing resets from 3.75 to 8. I have some of that debt coming next year. That's why I know about it. So as I'm looking at it next year, I have 3 mortgages that I think are going to reset. Now, what are they resetting from? Well, they are resetting not from 3.75. They're resetting from about 6 because that was debt that I got 5-year debt. So in 2018 is when I closed those deals. So in 2018, when I closed those deals, it was right around 6.5. And so when they reset, will they reset to 8? Yep, they will. Now, the terms don't reset. All that resets is the payment. That's all that resets. And so the interesting thing will be is next year when they reset, does the market start to fear deflation more than it fears inflation? The Chinese right now are going through deflation. They're trying to pump a bunch of money into their system to make sure that everything doesn't start collapsing, going down and then collapsing. So in our market, we're concerned about inflation, which is the cost of everything continuing to go up to the point where everything's become unaffordable. I get it. I still go out to breakfast. I still fill my gas tank. I still buy groceries. Holy crap and hallelujah. It is expensive. Everything is expensive. Gas, oil for houses. We just filled up a few tanks last week, and it was like $9,000 worth of heating fuel that we put out last week. Just last week. So be encouraged, continue to watch. It's not you, it's them, but this is what's going to continue to start developing the market. There will be people out there with debt. There will be people out there with money that you can go and borrow. But this is where personal, like family or seller financing, this is where that strategy comes in really, really well. Because if I think about this, I was actually able to offer somebody 8% on their money that's tied up in a building right now. That's pretty compelling, because even if they just stick it somewhere else, it's going to be 5 or 5.25, and they can get 8 from me. I'm so generous. So These are the things that we're going to continue to start to watch unfold in the market that make this for an interesting ride. Now, will rates continue to go up? I think it's a higher likelihood that they go up than they go down. I do. And yeah, that makes the Crash Bros wrong still. They were thinking rates going down in 2023. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're being priced in. No, they're not, until they aren't. They aren't. Rates aren't going down in 2023. They aren't. They aren't. Hopefully they do. Don't get me wrong. If they go down, awesome. But they're likely going up more, higher. And then we'll hit a plateau, and then it will stay. And then they'll see the economy start to turn. They broke housing. 50% are the inventory's down, off a cliff. Transactions are down off a cliff, 50%, 40%. It's going to be even more. Median home pricing, which you guys know me and Zub have our bet, which is median home pricing from peak to trough will be off 10%. And I think the peak was 416. And I think the last number that I looked at was 396. So, so you're talking about 4 or 5%. I think my big quarter, just so you guys know, I think this quarter is going to be the big quarter when it will show up next quarter. So I'm expecting like February of next quarter is when I expect that we'll hit that 10% on median existing home pricing. That's where I think it's going to happen. I think the other thing that you guys can think about too is this is where opportunity comes in. We're going into winter time in, a third of the country, and that's going to slow numbers down. Look at them seasonably adjusted, right? 2 years ago, we blew through winter like it was standing still because it was such a frenzy. Now we're back to norms. We're starting to see seasonability come into play. My belief is that I think we go into this winter. I think this quarter's tough. I think Q1's really tough. And that's where I think by the end of Q1, what did I say? January, February? No, I meant April, May. April, May is when I expect that we're going to show a ticker that we breach that 10% on existing home median price going down 10%. And much of that, I'll have you know, I don't believe is just purely due to lack of activity. It's due to lack of quality activity. It's because that mid-market and below has slowed down, but it's slowed down less than everything else. Who's going to give up their 3.5%, their 3%, their 2.5% debt? Who is going to give that up to get maybe a 20 or 30% higher house for a 2x the size payment? No one's doing that. Or the people that are doing that are the people that have to do that. So that's what I had for you. As I always tell you, we try and create great content for you. Make sure that we're just telling you and sharing with you our specific experiences. This is what I've seen this week. And yeah, as always, Lumberjack Landlord. So now we're going to jump into some of your guys' questions. Good to see you guys here on a Sunday morning. Corby Carter was first. Thank you, Corby. Jessica, good to see you, Jessica. Hope you're having a fantastic week. I know mine was jam-packed. I mean, look at my eyes. Oh, my daughter's crushing me. She's awesome. Oh, she's kicking my butt. She has awakened me more times, puked on me more times, and pooped on me more times than my other 3 kids combined. I don't know if she thinks it's funny, but it's not funny, Abigail. Good morning, Hyder. Just got my morning macro fix with Brent Johnson. Very cool. Jesse Thomas, good morning. On to my morning REI fix. Good to have you. All-nighter. Richard Gamino, great morning, Matt and everyone. Great morning, Richard. Frank Contreras, good morning, sir. Nick Ragland Johnson, good morning, people. Good morning, Nick. Good to have you. Buzztune, good morning. All-nighter. It's not an REI channel, but Markets, Milkshakes, and Madness with Brent Johnson was talking about liquidity today. If anyone needs an in-depth explanation, that's a great channel too. Yep, Brent Johnson, that's a great channel too. Simon's still my guy. Uneducated Economist did a video on it. I think it was either yesterday or Friday. Fantastic video. Talks about all the liquidity issues. And we're starting to see those liquidity issues. And that's what the Crash Bros also didn't understand, because none of them were smart enough to account for that in their formula. It's because they don't know it. But here's one of the things you can think of for those guys. I'll just wait. Oh, you're going to wait. You better have a 740 credit score, have been in your job for at least 2 years, and have a 8-month emergency fund. What they do is they start to move the bar. They absolutely do. Instead of you're jumping over a 3-foot bar, you're jumping over an 8-foot bar. That's how it tightens. Do you think they want to come out and just tell you no? No. They change the criteria. That's what they do. It's their money. They play the game. They change the criteria. Kurt C, good morning. Lisa Ferry, good morning. Glad to be here. Glad to have you here, Lisa. Laura, good morning. Good to have you here. Hit the like button as he shares valuable info, please. Thanks, Hyder. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that was good information, right? But a lot of you guys haven't experienced that yet. I hope you haven't anyway. All-nighter. George Gammon warned the same thing a few months ago. Yep. Riskier banks offer higher rates because that's what they need to attract unsecured lender deposits. That's exactly right. And so that's what, if you think about that, like, on the crypto side, like Celsius, and I know we never talk crypto here, but I do watch crypto stuff. And so that's the same thing that happened with Celsius. They were offering like 11% and 13% if you just left your crypto with them. And then if they were able to give you that interest in their crypto coin, then they would give you 17%. That's not FDIC, guys. That's not federally insured. And so then you end up with everyone's wallets being locked, no one having access to their crypto, and it being burned. Yeah, I don't like that system. I don't like that system at all. And it's not to say that I don't like crypto. A lot of these exchanges, scary stuff, guys. That's scary stuff. All-nighter hider. Didn't Dave do even as low as 30-day debt? He did. I don't have enough nails to bite for that shorter term. Yeah, so he did that shorter term stuff. I don't understand 30-day debt. Like that was definitely a product of the 80s. But who knows? Maybe we get back there. Usually the past doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so do I think we're in for higher rates? Yep, I do. Do I think we're in for a bigger bank margin? Yep, I do. Do I think that they're using that margin to help out people? No. What are you new here? They're not here to help us. They're banks. I'm the government. I'm here to help. Come on, really? Robert Farinelli, good morning, Matt. Good morning, sir. Frank Gutierrez, great info, Matt. Thank you. Appreciate that. And again, I don't teach economics. I don't have an economics degree like Zoob. But I talk about what I watch. I talk about the stuff I'm watching and the experiences that I'm having. And that's what I'm tracking, because when things went nuts back in 2008, that's what happened. People that needed money couldn't get it. People that didn't need money could get it. It was still expensive money. The last mortgage offer that I got on a building that I was doing, the last mortgage I got, I think it was was it September of 2008? It might have been, it was around that time frame. It's sometime between July and October. It was 10.25 was the rate from now defunct Countrywide. Now, why did they need me to pay them 10.25? Because they needed to show massive margin on those dollars to make up for some of the bad stuff that they were doing workouts on. Yes. The Yoder, good morning. Smash that like button. Thanks, Yoder. Corby Carter, off to work. You kids have fun. Thanks for the info, LJL. You're welcome. I'll catch the rest in Futureland. Hi to Corby in Futureland. Jesse Thomas, $9,000 in heating oil. Yeah. So to give you an idea, it's not that much actually. So if you figure that right now it's about $4 a gallon. And so if you figure that a typical tank is about 250 gallons or so, it's about $1,000 a tank. And so $9,000 kids equals 9 tanks. And so we had a number of people that had moved out. We always fill them up. I think that's something we're actually going to change though. We always used to give people a full tank, and not to give them, but start them off at a full tank. I think we're going to start starting them off at a half a tank, maybe even a quarter of a tank, probably a half a tank, because I want to give them some time to get in. And especially if they're moving in the wintertime, then there's going to be some of that increase in cost. But I kind of want to not, because when they go to leave, if it's a $1,600 unit, they're going to have to fill the tank. Guess what? They never fill the tank. They always forget. And sometimes it's empty, but sometimes it's half full, but whatever. But that could be $1,000, or oil and gas could be at $6 a gallon. You never know. So yeah, that's something to kind of watch. Wandering Doc. What's up, champ? What's up, my man? How you doing? Wandering the world. Let's see. Booger Fart Boy. I mean, if that's not like the coolest YouTube handle, I don't know what is. I thought Lumberjack Landlord was cool, but Booger Fart Boy is pretty awesome. Won't lie. That's good. That's good. Booger Fart Boy, welcome to the channel. Thanks for bringing it. Let's see. I might have considered converting to all electric HVAC. Yeah, so heat pumps. Yeah, you can't really do that in the Northeast. There's a reason why they're doing research on getting to a 30 below mini split. It's because the regular mini splits, they're not rated for even minus temperatures. If it's 15 degrees outside, they're going to have a tough time keeping up. The newer ones, the 0 degrees, they do an okay job, but we get worse weather here. We do. We get worse weather here. And you do in New York, in New Hampshire, in Vermont, in Maine, in Minnesota, in Wisconsin, in North Dakota, in South Dakota, Montana, all of those places, you get much, much, much harsher winters. And so a 0 degree system doesn't really work. You need like a minus 30 or a minus 40 system. So they're working on those. I think in the next couple of years, the technology will be out and that will be good. It'll be better than what's there now. But we've had some of the mini splits, and quite frankly, they perform okay, but we have to over insulate the building, and over insulating the building has its own problems. Not just cost. So yeah, but we have some of those mini splits. And man, are they a huge, colossal pain in the ass when they get installed. Like 1 million people can do them, but then all the wiring and things like that, and then getting the guy back to then fire it up, and then getting the guy back to make sure if there was some sort of problem. We just had that happen. What a pain in the ass. Chris Wissing. Hey, Chris. Good morning. Thanks, Matt. Welcome. That's why they're going Zoob wanting to make a deal. Yeah, I mean, I think that any deals, there's always deals. There's always a deal to be made. The question is the person ready to make the deal that's really good for you? The idea, have dry powder, have experience to know what you're doing by consuming a lot of content, and maybe the greatest course on real estate ever made, Lumberjack Landlord's course. Oh shit, I'm a landlord now, what? But be prepared. The key is that imagine being that landlord who's acquired, has sort of kind of stabilized their unit. So yeah, they pay rent and they're decently okay, but I'm not at the top of the market for rent. I've got a decent rent. And the bills are about average, or maybe a little bit more expensive on this, or maybe a little bit less expensive on this. What happens when you optimize? Well, now you're getting the most rent. You're getting the lowest costs. And what are you getting in return? The highest margins. The banks look at my margins. They look at how big the margins are on these different assets. And they're like, damn, you just bought this thing 2 years ago or a year ago. And sure, in the last 2 years, it's because the market's gone up so much, but they were saying that same thing in 15, 16, 17, 18. And it's because acquisition, stabilization, optimization. That's the path that I follow. Everything in the course is to bring you guys through that process. How do you optimize your process? How do you lower your cost for managing the asset? How do you do it even remotely? These are all the things that really come into play that are really, really valuable, that if you take those lessons, build out your business that way, then you get through the phase of acquisition, stabilization, and you don't stop there like 99% of the other landlords out there. You're getting through optimization. All of the things that you do for electric and plumbing and all those different things that you can do out there for management, that's how you win. Is that then when things start going down and things start getting more aggressive, I didn't call that the market would never go down. I called that it would go down between 10 and 20% on the median home price. I still believe that's going to happen. And it's going to be in large part, not in large part, but it's going to be due in part to high mortgage rates. It's going to be the banks tightening. It's going to be a liquidity issue. It's going to be a requirements issue that the banks are going to have with their lenders. That's what happened last time. And so there's parts of that I think are largely going to be the same. Gee, good morning, sir. Booger fart boy. Well done. Robert Fairnelly, are banks needing more margin also why it's harder to get a mortgage insurance? I think St. Mary's Bank might blow up my deal because apparently they can't get it because the unit I will be occupying isn't vacant yet. This wasn't a problem with Rocket Mortgage. They never cared about this and got mortgage insurance just fine. This is the thing when you work with some of these old stodgy banks. So St. Mary's Bank is like one of the oldest banks in the country. That's the problem, is that they usually have old, more stodgy principals, and they use them as excuses to get out of doing deals. That's why the guys that will do these crazy, anybody that will do like a kind of a deal with hair on it is what I call them. Guess what? They're charging 10.5 points. So they factor in all those risk factors. But now when you're borrowing it from St. Mary's Bank, it's 7.25, 7.5, 7.75. There's not all this margin for people to make mistakes. Because if you think about it, that other bank is making 500 or 600 basis points, where St. Mary's Bank might be making 200 basis points. Well, that means that if they're making 500 basis points, then they can have 1 out of 3 loans go bad and actually still be making money. That's kind of crazy, right? Or 1 or 2 out of 4. Is that empty already? That's unfortunate. I'd have to get one of the offspring to bring me something. G Lovo. Good morning, everybody. That's right. Uneducated Economist did a liquidity video yesterday, says Hyder. He did. It was really good. It was yesterday. I thought it was. I have missed so much of his stuff recently, and I'm so bummed, but it's but I was able to squeeze that one in yesterday. I was really pumped. It's really our money. It really is our money. It's true. It's very true. And the deposits are what give the bank the ability to lend the money, because for every dollar that you deposit, they can lend out $9. That's the crazy thing. That's why they're saying now, hey, we need you guys to bring in deposits. So now I've shifted. The way that I communicate my deals is only one way. I say, hey, when I do this deal with you guys, I'm going to be able to bring in $2,000 more a month in deposits, or $10,000. The one deal that I'm working on now is going to bring in $15,000 more a month in deposits. 15 grand more a month. That's a lot. Why? Is $15,000 a lot of money? To most people, but to a bank, is it a lot? No, it's not. But here's what it gets them. Gets them the ability to lend out 150. Think about that. Think about that. They get to lend out that 150 or 135. So when you take $10,000 of deposits away, it means that they can't lend out that $135,000, $150,000. That's kind of the crazy part, right? All-nighter. Technically, it's not money. It's the Federal Reserve's. That's true. That's why taxes are more accurately excise taxes. True. Let's see. Golly gee. There we go. BuzzTune. Do you watch Benjamin Cohen for crypto? Like his analysis? I don't watch Benjamin Cohen for crypto. Usually I've watched who have I watched? I don't remember who. I've watched a lot of the stuff blow up. I watch a lot of crypto stuff that blows up. That's where it's like FTX. I've probably watched 6 or 7 hours on FTX. I've watched about the same on Celsius and SafeMoon and Dogecoin and a bunch of them. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to learn and watch and see that there's suckers out there that are that big of suckers. It's just me. All nighter, or sorry, G Lover. All nighter hard. Taxes are going up. We are getting bent over with no Vaseline. Wow, that's quite the picture. Taxes are going up. Of course they are. They have to. They have to go up. Their taxes are absolutely going up, guys. Expect it. They're going up. They're going up. That's why when politicians promise no new taxes or they're not going higher or I'm going to protect the middle class, full of it. They don't know, especially because their policies, many of them require more tax dollars. Idiots. That's the thing is you have to believe that what they say is a lie unless you believe that they're the dumbest men on the planet. I'm not sure I can get to dumbest people on the planet. The problem that I have is career politicians. I think there should absolutely be term limits. And this is all I'm going to say about politics. There should be term limits. People should not get to live there for years. And they can't, because they're completely disconnected from reality. And Washington, I can tell you because I have friends in Washington and not like tiny friends, significant friends. And I can tell you that they look at things differently. And it's not the way that you and I look at things with having to put food on the table. When they say something that's written for them in a speech, these people aren't writing their own speeches. It's largely crap. Now I feel better. Lars Nielsen, good morning. I am home from military deployment and family vacation to Hawaii right after deployment. I love your channel and course. Thank you so much, Lars. The course helping you out. That's what I want to know from you guys. We're adding a bunch more stuff. I'm building out an entire slate of the stuff that I'm going to be doing for next year that we're just adding into the course. If you're in the course, you get it for free. It's not an opportunity to sell more stuff. It's the opportunity to make it more valuable for you guys. Because there's been a bunch of stuff I've gone through this year. I'm taking a break right now from the boot camps. We'll be picking those up sometime in January timeframe. And I think that I think it's already sold out. It might have one seat left, maybe one seat. And that's if we stretch to the 18. Zuber may have an economics degree, but I don't think he uses it. He's much more reality based. Yeah. I mean, I think that, once you're trained as an economist, I think that that's generally the way that you think. And so, yeah, I mean, he's right a lot more than he's wrong. He's right a lot more than a lot of other channels. I know that for sure. Wandering Doc. Good morning, guys. Booger Fart Boy. That's so good. That's thank you. Thank you thank you. G Lover. Check out 26 US code 7806B in case law Self versus Ray and Rodriguez versus Ray Donovan, the Ray Donovan, to see why taxes are optional. Love that. Basically, the code tells us that taxes are codes, not laws. Interesting. Then those case laws describe why we don't have to obey anything but common law. All-nighter. Nice, Lars. Enjoy your time, sir. Thanks for sharing it with us. I agree. Kyle Dorn. Hey, Matt. Took your advice on accepting the rental assistance. Still feel like it's going to end with an eviction, but you're right. Not a battle to fight today. Guys, I mean, as an executive for a number of years, owning my own companies, running executive, being in executive positions for other organizations, I can tell you very, very often, there are things that we do that we don't want to do. I didn't want to accept assistance for some of these tenants that I know are deadbeats. But here's the problem. Because I've done my homework, because I've sat in a courtroom, because I've watched how judges would rule, I don't know what rule of law they're using to cite. They're not citing law in the room sometimes, but I then see the decision go against the landlord. So what is the right thing to do? Well, I know what the right thing to do is. It would be to find 50 other guys that have a whole lot more money than me and file a class action lawsuit and sue. But that's not going to happen. That can't happen. And so what we have to recognize is the fact that I can take the assistance, path of least resistance, and just know that I need to prepare myself. If I'm a tinier landlord, I need to prepare myself to take the hit when that assistance runs out. A lot of states passed provisions that said if somebody can get rental assistance and they show up in front of these judges, the judge just says, have you applied for rental assistance? And if you say yes, and the landlord says, I'm not going to accept it, prepare to lose. Now, is that law or not? No, it's not. That's not right. It's not right at all. But what's my other option? You want to die on that hill? You can. You can die on that hill. I just wouldn't recommend it. So that's why for a number of times, I didn't want to take the money. I didn't. I wanted just the tenant gone so I could get the unit wrapped up, cleaned up, and get the next people in there. You want to know what a huge, colossal failure the emergency rental assistance program is? Let me tell you exactly how huge of a freaking failure it is. Because it was horribly administered in most states by complete buffoons. And here's the problem. 13 units. 13. We actually said to the program, we want to help you guys because people are having trouble and they're losing homes. We want to help you guys. Homes meaning rentals, not houses. And so we actually placed 13 tenants. The program's now been over. In January, it's a year. This coming January makes 1 year that the program's over. Out of those 13 tenants that we placed, you guys can start filling in below. You tell me how many are actually still renting from us. Market, not on a voucher, not on a Section 8 voucher. So how many of those 13 are actually still actively renting today? You tell me. G-Lover, all-nighter. But if you don't pay, you will go to jail or have your wages levied, and they will also go into your bank account. Yes. Where is it? Oh, turd. There we go. G-Lover. The technique to use is called conditional acceptance. Accept so long as they can verify their claim. Claims come with the burden of proof. They made their claim already. They're accountable. Arizona Joe, I prepaid for 1,600 gallons at $1.66 a gallon of propane. Dude, good for you. Good for you. Well done striking while the iron's hot. We missed our window this year, flat out. We just missed it. We just missed it. And the deal wasn't that big over what market was. But yeah, we just flat out missed it. All-nighter, you don't pay payroll taxes. All-nighter, I deposit my checks signed with redeem for lawful money only 12 USC 411 to avoid the excise tax. Sales tax is another animal. There you go. No payroll taxes for me, though. The legit right of taxpayer to decrease the amount of what otherwise would be his taxes or altogether avoid them by means which the law permits cannot be doubted. Justice Gregory Sutherland. Wow. Dropping the fire. Dropping the fire. Robert Farinelli, no hardship letters, no other unnecessary BS. They just do and close. Yes. Oh, I know you said try to work out with local banks, but build relationships. But then again, so far in my experience, even though they are more expensive, Rocket makes everything super easy. Agreed. Rocket is easier to do for sure. The challenge will be is that they use technology in a brilliant way. They don't have to pay for bankers. They're paying for follow-uppers. They pay for professional follow-uppers. And so the goal always is try and forge relationships with local banks, try and have those conversations with local banks. St. Mary's is a massive bank. They're not a $1 or $2 billion assets under management bank, I don't think. Let me just double check right now. Let's see. St. Mary's Bank, AUM. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, they're about that size. Interesting. I thought they were bigger. Yeah, they're right in that range. Run to $1 to $2 billion. Yeah, if they're not working for you, change it up. Change it up for sure. I'll have news about a new banks that I'm using because I found a home for that deal. You can bet your bottom dollar I found a home for that deal. Let's see. I can hear my kids running upstairs. Robert Farinelli, LO taxes. Let's see what happens in Manchester now after the election. Is going to be very interesting with a 7-7 board and Republican mayor. Hopefully taxes don't go up fast or COC goes away, is weakened. Yeah, I hope so. I hope that same thing for you. Booger Fart Boy. In with the quadruple thumbs up. G Lover, what is my escrow account taking out an extra $100 a month with the monthly mortgages payments? Does this payment go away? Escrow is usually pulled out of your account because it's for your insurance or for your taxes. They could have done an escrow analysis, which happens typically once a year, where they look at it and go, hey, we need to be pulling out a little bit more money because the money that we just spent, if we only take out as much as we are, then it's going to be behind. So the thing to look at, G Lover, is, and I know it's clever. The thing to look at, G Lover, is check out your taxes. Look at your taxes, see what your taxes went up. Look at your insurance, see what your insurance went up, because they could be taking that extra $100 to cover that. It's in all likelihood. All-nighter. The IRS and any government agencies will assume you're liable for whatever they choose till you hold them accountable for the claims they make. Knowledge is power with balance in mind. Agreed. All right, here are the guesses. 1 for Lars Nielsen. Josh Burdick, 1. Robert Fernelli, 0 tenants left paying market. Booger Fartboy, 0. Glover, 5. Jesse Thomas, 4. Here's the number. There are 0 market paying tenants. 0. None. There is 1 that's converted to Section 8. And the other one's well under. So I have 2 out of the 13. 1 is on Section 8. 1 we just evicted her dumbass. And all of them needed to be evicted, by the way. That's what doubled my eviction count. With 1 year, I doubled my previous 20 years of evictions in 1 year. Doubled. Thank you, a-holes. But 1, it's under market, and we purposefully did it under market because his daughter's in the school system. And so we purposely did it at a number that we knew he could afford, but it's purposely under market because his daughter's in the school system. And we're working something out for the springtime where he'll leave so we can then go way back up to market. The other person, Section 8 voucher. Yep. She got onto a Section 8 voucher. Robert Fernandez, how do I beef up wall insulation with existing blown in fiberglass? Do I try to condense it and blow in more? Yes. Yep. Yeah. You'll want to port the wall and then just do hard pack on top of it. Key, Matt, what's your opinion? Using Sensei Wi-Fi temperature controlled at rental unit. Is it good to put the information on ads saying that the unit is maintained at 65 to 75 throughout the year? Tenant can't change the setting beyond that range. I like that. And so I think that not necessarily that's not a feature or a function. That's not a feature or a function that I would list on the ad key. Because I think that would be kind of expected. I would think that would kind of be expected. So yeah, I don't think that's a feature. I don't think that's not the sizzle. That's not the sizzle. That's steak, not sizzle. And when we write our ads, it's all about the sizzle points. But good question. Booger Fart Boy. Do you Rocket Mortgage? I can't. Rocket Mortgage is a servicer. They don't hold paper. And so Rocket Mortgage won't do business with me because I already have my 10 Fannie Freddie loans. I'm already maxed out there. Also, for a first floor unit, I have a single 5/8 layer. Opinion on blown in or cellulose or for soundproofing instead of rock wool. And the 2 5/8 sheetrock drywall because I want to save on costs. I don't know which one would be better. I mean, again, if you've already got the 5/8, if you want to, the sound thing, I would look at Quiet Rock. That's been a better product for me. Ripping down the ceiling to put in rock wool. That's an option, but it depends. It's an envelope. So it depends on so many other factors. When we do it, we do rock wool, we do the Quiet Rock. And we also use channels, but we do all of that stuff to make sure that we know what we know. When it comes to retrofitting, it's definitely more difficult for sure. All-nighter. Matt, how many local banks do you have a relationship with? How many local banks are in your area? That's a really good question, Hyder. Probably 10. in this local area are lenders, banks and credit unions. And I have relationships with 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me, 4 of them. I have a response. Yeah, I have. Yep, with 4 of them. Yeah. One of them is probably 90% of my deals right now, or in the last 2 years. And then, or no, in the last 4 years. Yeah, 90%. Yeah. Yeah, right around there. But I'm doing more business with other banks. My core bank turned me down on a couple of deals. No problem. Just don't expect that I'm going to the dance. Whether you want to go with me or not, I'm going to the dance. Period. Let's see. Robert Farinelli, from a recent project I just did, I noticed that the blown-in insulation with the lathe plaster did just as good as Rockall with 258s. Could have been the lathe plaster, though. It's definitely the lathe plaster. Yeah, because with how that stuff is filled, I mean, you're talking about a 1/4 of an inch of wood, and then you're talking usually about another 1/4 of an inch of plaster. And then that's actually filling all of the slats in between. So you have, you get a little bit of vibration, but yeah, that stuff is pretty deadening. Good call, Robert. I would think the lathe and plaster would transition temperatures slower than drywall. Don't know for sure though. Yep, I think that's correct actually. Jacob W. Good morning, Matt and everyone. Good morning. Quick question. The market rent for a 4-2 apartment is lower than what Section 8 gives. Is that a good thing, bad thing, or what does that mean in terms of my local market? That is a really good question, Jacob. Well done. If you can still get that bigger number from Section 8, there's a reason I diversified my portfolio. I wanted, if I can make my nut off of 60% of my rents being paid, right? As an example, this is just math. So a lot of landlords can make it off of 60, 70%, especially if you've been doing this for 5 or 10 years, you can make it off of 60, 70% of what's coming in the door. So then the idea is, how do I guarantee that 60 or 70% as much as I possibly can? So for us, it's, we do 20% to Section 8, we do 20% to students, we do 20% to retiree slash, retiree, or it's more like 30%, I think. So I think it's 20% student, 20% Section 8, 30% retiree, and like government, like shipyard, firemen, police officers, etc. That's 70%, and then 30% is market. Well, if that's, let's say it's 100 units, right? Or 10 units. Let's say it's 10 units, and only 30% of your tenants are exposed to market conditions. Well, even if unemployment goes to 10%, the likelihood that one of your tenants actually gets hit is very small, right? So that's the idea. And usually tenants in most areas have not big, high-paying jobs. There's a replacement available. When you own a home, more often than not, that's a less replaceable job. And so it's harder to replace that job and certainly do it in that market, even if you have a couple of big drivers there. So for me, I would say I'd have the conversation with Section 8 and just trying to understand who they are, how they, what their process is, understanding, what that looks like. You could easily go through, I've been through, I get about 3 tenants that financially qualify, 3 or 4 that financially qualify out of every 100 Section 8 that I look at, 3 or 4. The other 96 don't qualify. True story. Kyle Dorn, is it legal not to accept assistance? Is it legal not to accept assistance? It's technically legal. Like, they can't lock you up if you do it. But I can see a judge saying you guys need to work it out. Exactly. Yep. Never went through eviction in this state, but it is quick, less than 30 days. What state, Kyle? It's not 30 days anymore in any state that I've seen, because every state now gives someone the ability to appeal. And if they talk to legal aid, which most of those tenants do, legal aid will tell them, well, yeah, just appeal it. So you can post papers. So I'll walk you through it. You post papers on the 3rd because they haven't paid. They then have basically 7 days to work something out with you, or 10 days to work something out with you. If they haven't worked anything out with you, then you go back to court and you say, they haven't reached out to me. We haven't worked anything out. Now I'm going to file. Then you file. Then you get that filing paperwork that you then take to the sheriff. The sheriff then serves it within 5 days. So you're 3 plus 10 plus 5. It's 18. Sheriff now serves. The sheriff serves that, and then you have the right to either A, get out, or B, contest it. Guess what happens? They contest it. Of course they contest it. They can ask for that court date and they contest it. They ask for that court date. That court date happens 2 weeks later. 3, 10, 4, 17. Now you're at 17 days plus a couple weeks, 31. That's how it's going nowadays. They get that court date within a week to 14 days. We'll call it, let's take a week off of that. Let's call it 24. So we're now 24 days. Let's just say we're 24 days. They get the hearing. The judge has the conversation with them. You're not able to work anything else out with them. Then you're going to be a minimum of 8 days to get the order from the judge. 32. Then you're going to bring it to the sheriff's office, and it's going to be another 3 to 5 days for them to serve that. 32, 35, 37. On the light side, you're 37. If the judge puts down the order and then they appeal it, they can come in and appeal it. And in some states, they're required to pay at least the prorated rent of the appeal, but they can appeal it, and that's another 7 to 10 days. And if they appeal it and they win, well, then you start all over again. That's never happened to me. If they appeal it and they lose, guess what they can do? They can bring it to the state superior court. And then it has to be heard all over again. And then they get to appeal that again. Now they have to be paying rent while that time happens, but they don't have to have paid the back rent while that time happens. So they can delay it. So don't take for granted that evictions are 30 days or less. They aren't. They're not 30 days and less in any state that I've seen. New Hampshire used to be that way, but as soon as they instituted the tenant's right to appeal, it went sideways. It sucks because it shouldn't have. Didn't need to, but it did. Let's see. Sorry, just want to make sure. Goof tired. Goofball electrician. Let's see. So hopefully that helps you, Kyle. I don't want to go down. I mean, again, you have taking the assistance. Yes, it kicks it further down the path. You're going to need to redo stuff in the unit anyway. And you're, like I said, the judge can't make you, but I've seen the judge say, you need to go get assistance, or you need to take the assistance and then come back to me when they can't pay. Yep. Unless you have some other sort of health code violation or something like that. And those are tough to win. They just are. Booger Fart Boy. What would you do? I'm a homeowner. Very good. Congratulations. That's awesome. And one rental. Very cool. I owe $350 on a home, and rental is paid off, valued at $215. 1031 rental or cash out refi. What would be your strategy? I don't sell rent. I just really don't very often sell rentals. It depends on what your goal is. So I don't give financial advice, but if I'm in your shoes, I have sold assets that don't fit my portfolio, like they're commercial or they're a specific kind of retail commercial. That doesn't fit my profile. It's not the kind of asset that I want to own. So I've sold those types of assets. Single families. I've sold those because it didn't make any, in my market, they don't really work. The option that I like almost always is cash out refinances because you don't have to pay debt on that. If you believe something's going to materially change the market, then yeah, you could sell and you could take that money and go do something with. If you owned it more than a couple of years, you're going to get long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains or income tax. So it seems like a goofy answer, but I would talk to the CPA because what you're trying to accomplish really matters. You could 1031, but what do the numbers look like on what you're going to 1031 into? I don't know your market. But that's what I would do. That's what I would scenario analysis with a CPA, because it might make sense to 1031. It might make sense to do a cash out refi and get cash in your pocket. But again, unless you're using the cash for something, like I never pull cash on an asset. Like I'm pulling cash on an asset right now. We'll probably be able to pull, I'm guessing like 250,000 cash out of that deal is my guess I can pull. So if I pull that $250,000 cash out of that deal, my payment's going up substantially on that house. It's going to be 7.5% debt. But my mortgage on that property is like 1,800, $2,000, and the rentals are 57. So I think it makes $4,000 a month right now. But that 250, I'm actually putting onto the side for just right now because it gives me a whole lot of liquidity while I do some of these bigger rehab projects. So it depends on what your purpose of the capital is really where my line is of what I decide to use, if that makes sense, or if I decide to do a deal like that. Let's see. All-nighter, LOL. I'm going to the dance. Love it. Yeah, I'm going to the dance no matter what. If you don't want to go with me, that's cool. That's all good. No worries. I'll do just fine going by myself. And so that's the same thing with banks. That's really that was a conversation with them. I said, that's fine. And my banker literally told the senior lender, hey, he's going to do this deal. It's just up to us whether or not we want it or not. And they're like, we don't want it. She's like, okay, he's going to shop deals and he's the kind of guy that's going to get paper. And I did. I got paper within 7 days. I had 3 paper options. I'll teach you guys how to do that. I'll talk about that next week. Let's see. Booger Farpoint. Mom, is that you? No, David. No, it's not. That's awesome. Apparently, don't forget about the 30 days if your building is covered under CARES Act. Yep. Because it was never sunsetted. Yep. So everyone with a Fannie Freddie loan payment is 30-day notice for non-payment. That's true as well. That's actually a great point. Yep, it's true. Daniel Fiore, don't forget if they contest and the court finds their argument valid. Absolutely. Well, but the challenge is that usually, like again, so this week I was in court. I won again, 20-0. Tyson. Just kidding. I'm a huge fan of Tyson's. That dude was a wrecking ball. He was awesome. Oh, so good. I liked him so much more as a champion, more than like the guys like Riddick Bowe and those guys. Klitschko was pretty awesome. But yeah, those are the things that you guys need to consider is the fact that, yeah, Fannie Freddie loan. Now it's not a 7 or 10 day. Now it's 30 days. 30 days is really hard to find. And if they find, here's what they can do. You could spend that time. You can go through that process. Then they can find, let's say it then gets granted because the judge has missed something. They can then sue you for unrightful eviction. Even if the judge missed it, it's your fault. If the judge remembers it, then guess what they do? They go, you can't actually do this. We're sending you back to 0. And then you have to start the whole process over again. We did that. We made the mistake. I kid you not. We posted papers on somebody. And when we posted the follow-up papers, we were 4 hours too early to be the full course of, I think it was 7 or 10 days or 14 days, whatever we posted. We were like 4 or 7, I think it was, what was it, 4 hours, 7 hours, something like that. It was 4 or 7 hours early. And literally we're going to court and a buddy of mine who's an attorney, he looked at it and he goes, dude, he's like, you're going to lose. I was like, shut up. He goes, you're going to lose. I go, why? He goes, look at your timestamps. I was like, I was like, yeah, that's fine. I had an extra day. He goes, no, you didn't. I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't. It's so true. It's because one of us in the business posted the papers and the other one posted the follow-up, and the math was wrong. It wasn't my math. All-nighter. Conditional acceptance is technique that keeps you out of courts. No dispute, no jurisdiction, just another tool to know. I'll need to learn that tool. Kyle Dorn, Davenport, Iowa. I love Iowa. Been to Des Moines, been to I've been to a number of places in Iowa. Yeah. Des Moines used to be the insurance, or no, Des Moines, I think is now. Is it now the insurance capital of the world or the country? Yeah, Des Moines. It was Hartford for the longest time, and I think it's Des Moines. Could be wrong. Actually, this info is given from the Davenport Landlord Education Assistance Program from the 2 judges there. Oh, didn't say anything about appeal, but it's a 3-day notice to cure or quit. Very good. Hey, if that's what the judges are given, then Iowa's a better state for investing now than New Hampshire, because this appeal thing didn't used to exist. It didn't used to exist here. They were just like, no, you lost. Like, what are you appealing? You were in court, you lost, or you didn't show up for court, you lost. That was smart, because then we were literally doing evictions in 3 weeks. It was awesome. But then they added this appeal process, and it adds at least 2 weeks. Yeah, and bites at the apple. Matthew Paris, look at that. I made it in time for the live this week. Good to have you. I'll be an hour late. That's okay, Matthew Paris. Still good to have you here. All-nighter. Correction. You may have to appear in court, but the courts won't take the case because there's no dispute. If that's the route you want to take. Caldorn. Then forcible entry notice, 3 days. Then court evictions every Tuesday. Yep, judge rules and then files that second. Most of the time he gives tenant until the weekend. That's super fast. That's super fast. Good. That's great. Test it out. Test it out and see how it goes. If you're that confident in that, I would test it out and see how it goes. What do you have to lose? If it's that fast and you only have to start over, then what do you have to lose? Yeah, my state, that's largely what the state is in my process, except it's 7 to 10 days now. And then their ability to appeal. But hot damn, if those are the numbers, yeah, like, why not? Try it. Give it a shot. All-nighter. Hey, Matthew, better late than never. Exactly. Timestamps on legal notice. Oh, man, that's frustrating. I know. Because literally they say, hey, if it's 7 days, it has to be a full 7 24-hour cycles. Not, well, it has been 7 days. No, has it been 7 24-hour cycles? That's how I was going to lose that case. That's how I was going to lose. Robert Fernelli, basement insulation is, hold on one second. Yes. 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 Electrician has to come get something. Robert Fairley, basement insulation is mineral worth it versus fiberglass? Yes. About twice the cost? Yes. Not sure the benefit would be in an open stud basement. Pests, mold, wet, all these things. Mineral wool is a million times better a product than anything else. Hyder, weigh in. You're a construction guy. Weigh in. Yeah. Don't think mice and rats would be making nests in excessive moisture. Yeah. I love that product. Yep. REI Stoners made it late. So rewind time. All good. All good. All good, guys. Check out their channel, REI Stoners. Check out their channel. They're documenting that. That's a really good example of what people coming out of the Lumberjack Landlord course do. They took the course. They did a bunch of the pointers that were in the course. They have a beautiful unit. I'm very excited to watch it get rented. Kyle Dorn, thank you. Accepting it this month, then we will see what happens. Yes, judge talks about how many days before each notice, and you're spot on. Do not file too early. It will be thrown out right away. They do, and they count those 24-hour cycles. That's the thing. I never lost. I've never lost in court. But had we gone, we would have been dismissed. I've never been dismissed either. Never happened. Nope. 20-0. Yep. 20-0. I tried to play music when I was walking in the courtroom. They said no. I was like, I'll just put it on my phone in my pocket. They were like, no, can't do that. I was like, come on, that'd be really cool. They're like, can't do it. It's like, fine. I was like, guys, is that or is that not the most fun you're going to have today? Crazy thing is, landlord tenant for us is like 1 or 2 cases in the morning. It kind of sucks. I'm actually going to take vacation time the week of Thanksgiving. And I kid you not, I'm going to spend some mornings in the courtroom just hanging out. I just want to watch. Just want to watch. Because you get better at it. You get better at seeing what techniques tenants use and what they say. The funny thing is after you've been there for 10 of them, they all start to sound a lot alike. Well, it's not fair. Well, but I can't find a place. Well, but, while we're doing our best, hey, listen, the bank doesn't take from me. I'm doing my best. I have to pay my bill. Period. End of story. And there's all sorts of bad things that happen. It's just the way it goes. Financial Fighter Fire. When do you plan on arriving in Vegas? I am definitely going. I don't know if I'm going early or staying late. I haven't figured that out yet. But we are. Hider, go mineral. See? That's what I'm saying. Mineral, it's a much, much better product. The pink stuff sucks. That's right. Stoners. Check them out, guys. Awesome. Well, I got to go meet my electrician upstairs, give him some product to finish the job for this weekend. Oh, it's been such a long summer. Holy Toledo. And now we're finally wrapping up. We're getting into wintertime. And thankfully we get down to just like 1 or 2 units getting rehabbed. And then we're doing some big projects. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Daniel Fiore, just admit there is not one movie. I don't know what that means. It's over my head, Daniel. Oh, I tried hanging out in the courtroom. They always just work things out. Well, do you know why they work things out? So the reason why they work things out is because then it can't be appealed. So in Manchester, they're famous for their workouts. However, over here, I try and work it out, but sometimes you're just being completely unreasonable. So we did a workout on this one. Not one movie out you want to see, but court. Oh, yes. I like court. I like hanging out there. I like watching the stuff, what happens. And we're also close to a college. So I think it's like every Thursday is college day there. And you watch all the people that got in stupid trouble this last weekend. And then you start hearing some of the stories. You're like, oh, why would you think that was a good idea? Anyway, guys, we always try and create great content for you. I hope you guys had a fantastic week and weekend. It was my great pleasure to spend this time with you guys today. Check out the course, check out the syllabus. If you think that you know everything about real estate, it might not be for you, but check it out. There's probably a couple of things in there you can still learn. If you're new in your journey or about to start your journey, hey, educate yourself. Educate yourself as much as you possibly can to minimize the risk that you have for something that might take you out of the business forever. So, Lumberjack Landlord, we will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.